All right, let's go. Let's get it. Generation X Nation. I'm gonna be doing a real quick review on Love and Marriage Huntsville, season 10, episode 5. I'm going to get a deep dive into the Nell and Letitia of the whole thing because, again, the other conversations and scenes that they show were interesting, and I will touch on them real quick. But I'm going to really get into the Letitia Nell thing because it's getting kind of old and it needs to be addressed in a way where I see where there's a different lens on it. Now, first things first. I want everybody who has joined my channel, thank you, thank you, thank you. Leave a like, leave a comment, hit the notification bell when I upload videos. Now, I only do reviews on a few shows. I'm not out here. I'm not monetized. I'm not making lots of money off of YouTube. I do it because I enjoy doing it. And I do feel like I have a voice. And I encourage anybody who watch TV shows, get on there and get on YouTube and start saying your opinion. It does count. Um, at the end of the day, everything on my show is alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Don't have a dog in this fight. I do my commentary based on week to week episodes. So this week I may like you, the next week I may not like you. Just depends on what I see on the screen for the week. Again, I don't really have any favorites, but there are some people that I think are doing a good job, and I will say that. I don't care what kind of comments you leave. I encourage everybody to leave comment, good or bad. I will respond. And the thing about me is you have a right to your opinion. You really do. Um, and with that being said, we're going to get on, start talking about this show. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything on my show is alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. So let's get started. We're going to real quick run down some of the other scenes, but I'm going to save the Nell and the t-shirt for last. So the first scene we're going to talk about is Lance and Nell when Lance goes over to when Miss Nell goes over to Lance's house to visit him. Real quick, nothing big about that. The only question I have is, Lance, do you have full custody of this child? Because I noticed in the conversation you said when you first got out of the hospital, you was living with your parents, and then after that, you moved in to back to your house. And then Chris Fletcher did mention something about baby crying and things like that in that scene we'll talk about. So I'm like, well, do you have a 50-50 visitation thing? Like you have her for a week, the mom have her for a week, but the way you're talking is like you're coming off as though you have this baby full time and holding a job. Now, as much as we have empathy for you, there are a lot of single moms who go through this every day, so they do understand what you're going through. And then you said you had 3 kids. I thought it was 2. I didn't even know you had 3. I mean, Lance, you're doing good. I like you. You're a very handsome young man. Man, do not let these, get use some protection. I'm just gonna say that. Stop going out there doing what you're doing. You have a lot to lose. You're trying to build a business. You got 3 babies right now. You come from a predominant family. There are some people out there who are gonna be looking for a come up. Let's just keep it real. Lance, be careful. Slow down with the baby making thing. Focus on your business and raising the children that you already have. Now, we're going to move on to this whole Destiny conversation. He said, I don't owe Destiny explanation. I owe her conversation. I do agree with him because Destiny has said over and over again, and in the flashbacks, we're just dating. We're just dating. See, you can't say we're just dating and then act like you all jealous when he ends up getting a girl pregnant. It don't work like that, Destiny. Now that the girl is pregnant and had the baby, you calling his mama like you ain't told me nothing. You all mad like y'all was in a relationship, but yet you was eyeing the godson Twan. You can't, Destiny, that's not how it works. And you always have this, oh, it's me, pity Destiny role when it comes to these relationships. You said your first LeBeric was a bad husband and he's a mama's boy, and then the whole thing with Sonny and I don't forgot his name, but the guy that Sonny took from you and married. I mean, you always having these relationships where these men leave you, but you said, according to you, you got big D energy, and you're this, that, and the third, but you can't keep a man. And I ain't saying the guys you date are good or bad, but something is odd about that, Destiny. What you need to do is focus on getting your businesses off the ground, raising that beautiful son you have, and maybe put the relationship stuff to the side. But I know you don't have a storyline, so Lance is your storyline between Lance and Martell. That's all you got, but Lance, you don't owe her. You do owe her maybe a conversation to be respectful, but that's it because Destiny defined that relationship. She did that when she said, y'all are casual dating. So, moving on to the next scenario, we're going to talk about Kimmy, Letitia, and Destiny in the boutique shopping. So, you get Letitia and Destiny and Kimmy. They're at this little boutique doing some retail therapy, according to Letitia, because she just need to do this for all the businesses she's that they've been running. Um, Then she said, I invited Destiny too. So they all come in and then they get to talking about the previous birthday party. And as usual, Letitia gets up, explains the situation as though Nell was wrong. Kimmy is sitting there knowing Letitia's not telling the story correctly, but she's going along with it. So they get through the process where, Letitia's telling uh Destiny that her and Nell had this falling out because Nell accused her of getting in Chris' face and she didn't do it and all of that crap. Tisha, I'm starting to worry about you and you might need to put down the bottle, the tequila or something, because you starting to have memory loss. You got in that man's face. You did have your hands up. Nell stepped in between y'all. Marceau sat there and let it happen. Letitia, you got to play back some of these shows, and I'm sure when you see it now, you realize you probably was out of line. But what I'm finding out between these two, Letitia and Kimmy, is Letitia and Kimmy think they are the HBICs now. Now that their former castmate is gone. Now, Destiny's sitting there looking at both of them because apparently her and Nell has already had a relationship through Martell and his ex. So she knows Nell and Chris. So she don't want to say anything bad about Nell, but she's trying to fit into this Scott thing because now the Scotts are running Huntsville, according to Ms. Wanda. But remember, they had an issue. I think it was Kimmy and Destiny had an issue, if I'm not mistaken, early on when Destiny called LeBerick the Chicken Man. Kimmy called LeBerick the Chicken Man. So Destiny and Kimmy never were best friends, but now they're trying to form this friendship, which is great. I guess it's great for the show. But Kimmy and Letitia apparently ain't seen Mel since LA. So once again, you guys are pretending to be all of these great friends running Huntsville, and y'all don't even like each other still. Your public enemy number one, allegedly, that y'all just couldn't stand, who was causing all the drama on the show, she's no longer there, and y'all still not getting along. So who was the real problem? But I'll talk about that later on. So anyway, they get to talking about Nell. Nell asked her about the podcast question, and they didn't like, I guess Kimmy didn't like them talking about it. And then Letitia said, I said what I had to say on the podcast when me and Martell went on our Instagram channel. But Letitia, remember last week you said I did not watch the video. So once again, why would you say something on a podcast about a video you never watched? Y'all got to really catch them in their lies because they lie good. So I'm looking at my notes, people. So Letitia was trying to say, Nell don't want to get me started because there's a hell of a lot I can say about her marriage because their house is not unbreakable. So once again, you are sitting there talking about another person's marriage, but you hate it when somebody talk about yours. The hypocrisy of you and Kimmy is just beyond me. And Kimmy right there co-signing on all of this stuff. So then somebody was like, so we need to not talk about people marriage. We need to stop changing our behavior and maybe possibly apologizing to each other about what we're doing. So now that y'all don't have this one person marriage to, you know, laugh at, make fun of, and talk about as y'all storylines. So now y'all got to talk about your own ish. Now y'all don't want to talk about it. Stay out of it. See, this is the crap people be saying. This is bull crap. Y'all did this to this one castmate who's no longer there for 8, 9 seasons. Talked about their marriage, disrespected them, so on and so forth. Laughed about the whole breakup, the divorce. But now you don't have that to fall back on. Now, oh, we don't want to talk about each other's marriage. Let's start apologizing and being better at that. Really? This is what's throwing fans off. And tell me, I am a fan. I know a lot of people talk crap about this show. I've been a fan since day one. And even after the exit of your castmate, who was probably, and I don't play favorites, but that person was probably one of my favorite people on the show. And I support them to this day. I have some of their products. And I re-up when I run out. But I still love my people. So I try to support my people. And you guys make it really hard for me to continue even to watch by the way y'all acting now. Like y'all turning the tables. Now that this person's gone, I done ran them off of the show that they created and gave you guys a platform. Now we don't want to do this anymore. So you don't want you don't want what was done to her be done to you. So you don't want Nell or whoever doing to you what y'all did to that lady, your ex-castmate. Hmm. I'm just saying that the hypocrisy. So then Destiny said, well, since we're in the apology things, let's talk about Martell. And what happened then? Tisha, in true Tisha fashion, and true Letitia Scott fashion, grabbed her purse and walked off. I promise you, somebody needs to do one of those compilation videos every time Letitia walked off of a conversation, because I don't even think she realized she does that all the time. I don't think she realized how many times she has done that. And it's starting to be very, very noticeable. But that's just me. So again, they start talking about the whole Martell thing and having a conversation with him and sitting down. And then she was even uh was it Destiny mentioned Arion's name. I think she said it this particular episode. And I said, oh, they are really saying her name now. Whereas before they wouldn't even say it. So that is very, very, it's very interesting. I don't know if she gets paid every time they say her name, but they're saying it as though they're trying to make honest woman out of her. And I ain't saying she a bad person, but it's just odd that I'm noticing now they're saying the name. So Kimmy starts doing her investigating as usual. Start asking her about Lance and the relationship and what happened. Once again, Kimmy don't want you asking nothing about Maurice. Nothing. When the whole DUI thing came up, she wouldn't answer questions. She did like Letitia, get up and walk away. Didn't want to answer shit. But now she want to investigate deep into, well, what happened with you and Lance? Did you know? Did you call me? All this stuff. Her and Tisha Scott are making people. And I know they've probably been whispered in the ear because, again, we do our commentary based on what we see on the show week to week, episode to episode. I don't have a dog in this fight. I know some things are cut off, and they don't really show it or aired. And I also know that the producers may push some stuff. But somebody must be whispering in her ear to ask these questions or that question, because they stay in other people's business but don't want nobody in their business, them two Scott sisters. And I know they're probably pressured to get this show back to being where it was prior to the castmates leaving. And they said the viewership did go up a few, and I believe that's because some people probably didn't know it was back on again until they start seeing the content creators talking about it. So yes, the viewership will go up. But again, instead of talking about the issue at hand, they go and divert the conversation to other people's business. Kimmy ain't mentioned nothing about her situation with Maurice and her son Jalen to Destiny. She didn't say, you know what, I was talking to Maurice and Jalen, and we all had a conversation. I didn't know Jalen felt that way about Maurice, but she ain't bring that up. Destiny ain't married to Lance. They were quote unquote dating. So why is it a big thing, Kimmy? Trying to create storylines. All right, we're gonna talk about Letitia and I'm sorry, Trisha and Mel and Nell's conversation. And that was just a real quick one. And I think Trisha is filming with with Nell, and then she's also filming with Letitia and Kimmy. And I believe Letitia and Kimmy don't really like filming with Nell too much. That may be why Trisha is over there. Because once again, they keep mentioning they haven't seen each other in California, so they're not real friends. So they're easing into this filming together stuff. So, Nell is telling Trisha, hey, I didn't appreciate what happened, her getting in my husband's face. And I felt it was wrong and it was rude. And then Trisha just sitting there like, well, I don't think it was like I don't know, for some reason she's taking up for Letitia. She didn't think it was like that. Um, and then, Nell said, look, at the end of the day, Letitia likes to comment on everybody else's stuff, but she don't want to talk about her own stuff. And she felt that Letitia crossed the line. But for some reason, Trisha is still saying she didn't see what Nell was describing. She was standing there, but she didn't see Letitia up in Chris Fletcher's face. She was standing right there. She didn't see the argument. I didn't see what she's describing. Trisha, go somewhere. The whole world seen it. Where was you at? Maybe you had one too many tequila shots. I don't know. But we all seen how disrespectful and rude Letitia was this particular episode. Like I say, I have a dog in this fight with Letitia, but she was rude this particular episode. Okay, so stop playing. So then they go to Kimmy and Jalen. They're sitting there having this conversation. Kimmy still is oblivious to Jalen and Maurice's situation. Jalen is sitting here telling her, I had a conversation with him and I told him how I felt. And Kimmy was still, she was like not even hearing her son. I will say this: congratulations to Jalen for finding the job that you want, for not having to take a pay cut and not having to leave the city. So you're still close to your family. Congratulations to you, Jalen. You seem like a good kid. Now let's get back to Kim. So he's telling her, I had a conversation with your husband. And I told him I felt like he was a mentor. I felt like I didn't get the fatherly figure that I wanted. I never felt I had been fathered my whole life. Kimmy, she basically just disowned any of that and was like, well, I felt being a mentor was like father and he did this. Kimmy, you not understand what this man's saying. He's saying, I didn't get the love of a father from Maurice, and I didn't get the love of the father apparently from my biological father, because in Jalen's own mouth, he said he never felt he was fathered coming up. So the closest thing he felt to a father might have been Marcel. And for some reason, Kimmy, it just, I don't know if it's flying over your head purposely, intentionally, or you just not understanding what he's saying. The man said, thank you for raising me. Thank you for putting a roof over my head. Thank you for sending me to college. But you still did not give me what I needed in here as a father figure. And that was the love that he felt he needed, the attention that he felt he needed, the coming over and giving me that hug, the coming over and saying, son, you did great. High five, excellent job. Sitting outside in the heat of the sun, watching him play softball or football, whatever, showing him how to tie his first tie, having a conversation on his first date, telling him about his body change. He's telling Maurice, this is what I didn't get. And for some reason, Kim is she is basically not even what's that word? I can't think of it, but she's like discounting his feelings to the fact that, oh, put a roof over your head and he put food and clothes in your back. Yeah, there are people who live in homes who have a roof over their head, have food and clothes, and they're being abused. Doing all that doesn't make you a good parent. It's the emotional connection. And he's telling him, I did not get that. But of course, Kimmy defending Maurice as usual. If Pick Me had a face, Kimmy would be definitely one of them. We'll get on back to Nell and Chris real quick. Nell, Chris is right. Okay, I know you want to help your son. Got to remember he is a grown man. You can't keep bailing him out of all of these different situations. I'm glad that Lance sat down with Chris and told him what your plans was because you wasn't going to tell him. You was just going to pack him and leave or just do it, and then it would cause an argument in your house. Now, I know that's your son, and we do what we can for our children. Help out when you can. You have a daycare. I'm sure he's taking the baby there while he's at work. Help out where you can. But Chris is right. You can't make a major decision like that and not tell your husband. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Don't create any issues in your marriage over this because there are a lot of situations in where people do have to step up as grandparents. And your son is in a very good situation. What he probably needs to do is, I don't know, where the mothers of the child at again, I don't know. But maybe see if her side of the family can step in some and you step in some. Make it an equal thing because a child does have two sides of the family. And I don't know the side of the family. We haven't introduced it. They may not be the type of people who can help. We don't know. But try that 50-50 thing. You're one grandma. It got to be another grandma, grandpa, auntie on the other side. Maybe y'all can help out that way. Because if that baby gonna need a village if Lance is the one raising her by himself. That's my take on that. I don't like talking about kids too much. Let's get into this whole Nell and Tisha things because I'm gonna end with this. All right. Tish, I'm sorry, Letitia. They're sitting down having this conversation. And as usual, Letitia's like, well, now what do you want? Just say what you want. So when Nell's telling her, look, I felt you was out of line. Why wasn't I out of line? Letitia keeps cutting her off. You got up in his face. I wasn't pointing in his face. Letitia keeps cutting her off. Letitia, you got to be able to sit in it and listen to people when they are correcting you or when you're wrong about something. Letitia has a very, very bad habit of not wanting to hear anything negative about her or her spouse. But she's really good at saying negative stuff about everybody else and their spouse. So going forward, Nell is like, look, we need to have these conversations. You need to take ownership of what you did. I feel this is an issue. She said, your husband needs to stop bringing my husband name up about NDAs and all of this stuff. And then when Nell explained to her, hey, your husband started it first about the whole Atlanta trip and saying that he was with my husband, Chris. And they started showing the flashbacks. So if y'all don't remember they had this boys' trip to Atlanta. And that's when Ariane came out with the photo of Marceau and Maurice and all them saying she was there with her friends and Maurice and Marceau like big back women and linebackers. Go back and look at them videos, a couple years old, but I remember. So that's where all that came from. And when she was sitting in the car with Maurice, but she was about to cry in front of Black, sitting there about to cry, asking Maurice who was he with in Atlanta, and he stumbled a little bit, and then he said, "I was with Chris Fletcher." And I don't know if that was for the dramatics of it all or not. So that's what Nell was talking about. Conveniently, Letitia done forgot all that. So as usual, Nell said, hey, I need you to stop doing this. You need to be more respectful. And, you never answered the question about the podcast. She started getting in Letitia's butt. What Letitia do? I'll wait. Get up and walk off. As usual. Letitia always gets up and walks off when the conversation gets tough. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but think about this. If you've been a fan of this show and have been watching every season, how many times has she sat down with uh the former castmate? And I'm gonna say her name, and this is not out of disrespect because I don't like saying her name because she doesn't want to be affiliated with the show. But Melody, when Melody would sit down and have these conversations with Letitia, and it got hard, and she started asking her about Marceau, his marriage, possibly cheating, whatever. I ain't listening to this, and she'd get up and walk off. When Stormy was asking her about the little $100 for the event, and they got to the argument, and she called Marceau a B. She didn't have smoke for Stormy because she knew Stormy would have ate her ass up. But she got up. I ain't talking about this. You need to talk to my husband. Get up and walk off. Letitia has been the walk-off queen for the last 4 or 5 seasons. When the conversation gets tough, She doesn't want to talk about it. But at the same time, she don't have no problems up in your grill. Kimmy the same way. When Melody sat down with Kimmy, started asking about Maurice's DWI, well, what did you see? What did you hear? Okay, get up and walk off. Letitia and Kimmy, if it gets down to talking about their shit, they will walk away. But they want to know all of your business. All of your business. When they asked her about the podcast when the season first started, well, I don't know, Mel, what did you hear? You gotta look at their body language. That's how they operate. But they're supposed to be bringing the show back to the Black excellence. But they can't even face their own stuff. They don't even have their own storylines. Their storylines is telling everybody else's business and not telling their own. The podcast wasn't that big of a deal because honestly, most of us ain't believe nothing came out that girl's mouth. Most of us don't like Ariane, and most of us can give a shit what Martell say. We knew they was doing this for the get back. And I'm not saying you cheated or didn't cheat with that lady, but we didn't really care. And again, we tired of the cheating storylines. We don't care. You and Kimmy both sat there last episode and said y'all didn't watch the podcast, but if you didn't watch it, why do you care what the lady said? But you all up in his face. You said we signed NDAs and all. Why do you care about any of this if you didn't watch the podcast? Because you wouldn't know it unless your husband's watched it and came and told you. And then you want to talk about it based on what they say. This is the problem that the audience have with YouTube. Now, last week, Carlos, and I watched Carlos King because I actually think he's very good at interviewing people. And I like Claudia and I like Dustin. Now, a lot of people, you got your issues with Carlos, not Carlos. It's, I watched, reality talk with the King because he do interview some very interesting people. So Monday, I watched it because I seen Maurice was going to be on there. I said, well, let me watch and see what Maurice going to say. Because Maurice is never really talks a lot. So he said, and I quote, and you can go watch the podcast, that you can tell when Martell is lying because he'll clear his throat. And they got a kiki out of that, laugh, 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 laugh. And I said, you know what? I started thinking. I said, yeah. And then he said he looks down on the ground in his interview. And I said, you know what? Maurice is right. Martell does that a lot, you know. But to me, I feel like Maurice is lying. Martell lies when his mouth opens up. That's just me. Now, I said, well, since he's going to say what Martell does, let me see what they do when they lie. So I put a little sticky pad here and I said, I'm going to go down the list and I'm going to tell you what, when they're lying, this is the body language that I see. Or when they are hit with tough questions they don't want to ask, this is the body language that I see. We're going to start first of all, let's start with Trish. When Trish, when you ask Trish a question, Trish starts talking like under her, I think it's Trish. She starts talking kind of through her teeth and then she stutters. But I said, but he said this, she does that. So that's when you know she's trying to think of an answer because she don't want to tell you the real truth. When Ken doesn't like something or is confronted or maybe lying, Ken gets really upset and he goes into a quote steroid rage. Again, allegedly, I ain't saying Ken is on steroids. I'm not saying that, but he reminds me of a person who's having a steroid rage because he'll start getting, when I told you, what I tell you, I ain't listen to that. He'll do that. That's what I get out of Ken. So let's go to Nell. When Nell gets frustrated, upset, Nell about to pop off. I don't know. Wanted to say she from Bessemer and they bad down there. I don't know where Nell's from, but it must be badder over there. Because Nell be ready to fight at the drop of a dime. And especially put some liquor in him. When Chris Fletcher don't want to confront something or is not being completely honest, his voice gets low. Well, I told him about it, but they ain't want to listen to me. Maybe they signed NDAs. That's Chris Fletcher for me. That's when you hear his voice toned down real hard and you got to zone in and listen because he's probably not giving you the full story. Pay attention to these characteristics. This is just what I noticed. So then we'll get over to Kimmy. When Kimmy don't want to don't want to have a hard conversation or she not being truthful, Kimmy will respond to you with a question. So if you say, well, what about Maurice's DWI? Well, what have you heard about it? That's Kimmy come back. What have you heard about it? She'll throw the question right back at you when she don't want to talk about it or she don't want to be honest. That's exactly what she does. Just my observation. Maurice, if he doesn't want to talk about it and or he's not telling you the truth, Maurice gives you this blank stare. So Maurice, what happened that night? I mean, well, I was driving my car. I was traveling. That's what Maurice does. Doesn't give you a full explanation. He'll stare at you for a second or two, then he'll open his mouth and then he'll give you a short, quick response. Never gets into detail. Okay. Now they're trying to do a little better because they notice the audience is getting on them about not being very open. Marceau, you ask him a tough question, a hard question. Marceau gets very uh philosophical on you. I want to say I said the word right, philosophical. He'll start coming with some, well, back in the day when we used to have this and that, and then that's where that origin of that came from, and now we're here. That's what Marceau does. And last but not least, oh no, I forgot Destiny. You ask Destiny a question that's hard for her to answer, or she consider a tough question. Destiny is going to go back to Detroit. Destiny is going to get a little mouthy, a little sarcasm, a little street, get that little street hood back in her, and that's how she responds to tough questions and things she don't want to talk about. Okay. And then the last one is Letitia. And I say to her for last because Letitia, dead giveaway when she don't want to talk about anything, when she's not telling you the truth. Letitia will run away. She will grab that purse, sling it on her freaking shoulder, and you will see the back of her head. Letitia will give you her ass to kiss. Okay? Letitia is a runner. She's a track star. She runs away when the conversations get hard. That's what I see out of Letitia. Now, that's my recap of Love and Marriage Huntsville. I know it was quick, a little all over the place. I actually just watched it this morning. So I was a lot of things was in my head and I was trying to cover everything I seen, but I just wanted to get this video out here. I may do another video later on about it, but keep in mind what I said. Again, everything on my page is alleged, in my opinion, for entertainment purposes only. Alleged, in my opinion, for entertainment purposes only. Remember this, if you don't remember nothing else. When the conversation get hard for Letitia Scott, she's a runner, she's a track star. She runs away when stuff gets hard. That is Letitia. But this is the person that Carlos King has gave the throne to, her and Kimmy, to bring this franchise to the next level. I don't know if it's working or not. I can't really say how the audience is perceiving it, but the most of the stuff that I see is not always positive. Kimmy, Letitia, stop the deflection. Open up your lives. Have the hard conversation. And Kimmy, I think you really lost a lot of your audience by the way your behavior has changed over the years. And for me to sit there and watch you have a conversation with your child and discount his feelings when he said he never felt as though he was fathered. He didn't feel fatherhood as a child. That touched my soul, and he ain't even my son. And you discounted all of that and went into, well, he was a good mentor. You turned out okay. Girl, I'm going to leave that alone. And with that being said, this is Generation X Nation. She's a runner. She's a track star. She runs away when the conversation gets hard. Remember that. You guys go and have a great rest of your day. And this is Gen X Nation. Like, subscribe, share. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I would definitely appreciate it. And with that being said, peace, and I'm out.